Hello, I'm Michael Reed, Vedic astrologer with 20 years of experience in the astrological field. If you're interested in scheduling a consultation with me, please feel free to do so through my astrological services page, which you will find linked above. In addition to that, you can find further information on my courses at this link. I have a very special guest today, Dr. Arjun Pai, and you can find his information, and I'm going to put it within the video because YouTube sadly won't let us promote other people's channels, but I'm going to put a link within the video for everybody to see, and you can just copy it and visit his site. So thanks for coming on to the channel today, Dr. Pai. Pleasure.
Thank you. Namaste, Michael.
Namaste. It's been a long time since we've connected.
Yes.
It's been nearly a year, I think.
Absolutely.
I wanted to have Dr. Pai onto the channel today because he relates to the nakshatras in a very deep manner and in a way very harmonious to the way that I do. And myself, I believe that nakshatras, even though they're excellent to use predictively, and I definitely use them predictively, I believe that we're only using like a minute portion of the nakshatras, and that they serve such a deeper purpose, and that really what they relate to on a very profound level is the evolution of the soul, and that we have specific planets placed in specific nakshatras because we're meant to grow those planets in a very specific way. And if you watch my channel regularly, you might notice that I did a couple of videos on how the nakshatras work. And in those videos, I talk a lot about Varuna and the function of Varuna in connection with the nakshatras. And we're going to kind of revisit a couple of those points today. But I just wanted to start our discussion off with a hymn from the Rig Veda, which touches on Varuna and kind of clarifies the connection that Varuna has with the nakshatras, because Varuna is noted in mythology for having placed the stars in the sky. And of course, the nakshatras, being divisions of the heavens, relate to the fixed stars. So this hymn says, "Wise is the world's creation through the greatness of him," meaning Varuna, "who fixed the earth and sky asunder, and lifted up the spacious vault of the heaven, studded with stars, and earth beneath extended. With my own heart I meditate this question. With Varuna when shall I be united? What gift of mine will he unangered welcome? When shall I, happy-hearted, see his mercy? Wishing to know my sin, I make inquiry. I go about to all the wise and ask them, and with one accord they gave to me this answer. 'Tis Varuna whose wrath is hot against thee. Varuna, what was my chief transgression?" So Dr. Pai, what are your thoughts on this sutra and on Varuna and his special connection with the nakshatras?
Yeah, when you asked me to come on your channel to speak about Varuna, and you gave me these, references from the Rig Veda, I was very excited because, during my study of the nakshatras as well, I found Varuna to be a central figure and a Hindu pantheon god. And as you mentioned, he was called as the god of Rita. Rita means the universal law and the celestial order. Okay, so this was during the Vedic period. And one more thing, what you also see with Varuna, as you also mentioned, that he is the lord of the all-enveloping sky and the earth and all the celestial order. So it comes naturally to him because this was a kind of a boon which was granted to him through his mother, Aditi. Aditi, as you know, that she's the all-enveloping sky. She's also the earth goddess. This is kind of, it has been inherited kind of from his mother. And what you see is in some of the texts, they also mention that Varuna is the ninth son of Aditi. And some of them also say he's the eldest. Even some of them say it's Indra. but there are certain references that I've also found that they say he's the eldest, you know. And when you go to the Rig Veda, and you see this, because he's the supreme keeper of the law and order, and as you said, he divides the sky and the earth. So this was one of the topics that we said we will discuss, Michael, is about the duality. I think you've also done a video on that, on the duality of Varuna. And it's quite interesting to see that whenever I start looking at these deities and the Hindu pantheon gods and the nakshatras, I'm also very keen on knowing, what is their vehicle or their mount, because that gives you a lot of sense about the symbolism of Varuna as well. And and I think, Michael, you should be, that the vehicle of Varuna is called as Makara. Makara means it's a hybrid creature, and it's also called as a sea dragon or a water monster. And what you see with that is the duality which comes with it, is because it's half mammal and a half, aquatic animal. So half terrestrial animal on the frontal side, and some of them show that as a stag or a deer, the frontal side, and some and some of the carvings in Indian architecture in different places, they've also found elephants to be one of the representations. This is very surprising to see the frontal part of the Makara, the vehicle, the mount of Varuna, to be one of that. And the hind part is the aquatic animal. And some of them show that as a tail of a seal, a snake, sometimes a peacock, and some of them also depict them as a fish. So this is largely, if you see, this is the duality which comes in to Varuna, is because, half aquatic, half terrestrial, and if you also know that Krishna himself says, amongst all the aquatic deities, I am Varuna.
Exactly. Yes.
But Varuna doesn't have just the the symbolism of the oceans, like what all of us we know. We know that he's said to be the lord of the oceans, right? Anything which is salt, which has salt water, then they say it is the remit of Varuna. Even though initial things say, fresh waters, is the remit of Indra, bringing rainfall and clouds and everything is Indra, which was later on probably, given to him. But essentially, if you look at the Makara, Makara means, even in India, it's called as the marsh crocodile, or it's called the mugger crocodile. That's the English term, mugger.
Right.
Mugger, mugger. So where does it come from? The root word may be Makara, And what is surprising is Makara, this mythological creature, also happens to be the vehicle of Ganga, the river Ganges, and river Narmada. And also what you see is there is a connection with this Varuna and with this animal Makar, with Kamadev, Manmatha or Kamdev, the god of, he's the Cupid, is the god of love and desire. He is also depicted in many temples in India with a Makara Dwaja. Makara Dwaja means the flag of the crocodile. He's also called as, the flag of Makara Ketu. Ketu is Dwaja, the flag.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that flag depicts the Makara. So again, when you're talking about Varuna, there is also an angle which not many people have really delved into, is that there is something to do with his invocation and also with union. Okay, this is very surprising to see, because many people who want to bring in order, and their relationships, then you can also appease Varuna to bring this whole concept, which is very surprising, because the Gayatri mantra of Varuna, if you look at their, Gayatri mantra is always invoked, and they say this domain of Varuna is the west region. He rules over the west, and this region of west is said to be called as Nimlochana. the area, the domain is called Nim Lochana. Nim Lochana means it's like the setting of the sun.
Right.
The setting of the sun is called, the region where the sun sets is called Nim Lochana, the west. Going down of the setting of the sun. So the mantra for Varuna and the Gayatri is called Om Jalabimbaya Vidmahe Nilapurushaya Dhimahi Tanno Varuna Prachodayat. So this mantra is you're meditating on the reflection of the water, and you're praying to the blue oceans, who is the giver of the higher intellect, and that's what we want to bring into our life. And many people who can recite these mantras can also use to bring in some sort of cosmic order and law within their own relationships and their home, their workplace, everywhere. So this is very surprising to see, even in Rig Veda, Michael. When you see the references of Varuna, Varuna is not referred to as a single god. He is always referred to with his companion Mitra. It's Maitra Varuna or Mitra Varuna. This is called as Devata Dvandvas. In Sanskrit, it's called Devata Dvandva, the dimorphic pair. So one is called the Aditya of the night, which is the dark sun. And Mitra, his counterpart, is the Aditya of the daylight. So he brings in more, and that's why sometimes in Rig Veda, many occasions is also referred to as an Asura. Varuna also has been referred to as an Asura. Asura means somebody who doesn't have Suratva. Suratva means light. He brings light after there is no light.
Right.
Even
exactly.
darkness, he brings in divinity and light. And very surprisingly, what you see is we all have two eyes, and the one who has more eyes than us is Indra, because he's called as Sahasra Yoni and Sahasra Netra, which means he has got 100 eyes. And Varuna is the only deity who has been given 1,000 eyes, as per mythology. So he is the sun. His eyes are the sun and the stars. They are keeping a watch on everybody and all the sins that we do. And also he is the God who brings in this sort of divinity and brings in this balance. And that's why I love the video that you've done on the duality of Varuna. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, you've said a lot of very profound things, and every time we talk, there's always these tons of things that get stirred by what you say. And I often find myself in true Varuna fashion, like having all these abstract concepts that are stirred by things that you've said, and then with a lack of capacity to be able to express or comment upon what you said. But I found it really fascinating. One of the things I was talking about when you were saying about his association with the abode of the West, right? And the connection with that is, if we understand that with the natal chart, you have the ascendant, which is the East, and you have the descendant, which is the West, which most people understand as relationships, but it's also the point that the individual is perpetually moving toward. And Ketu and Rahu as well function as another ascendant and another descendant. So the connection that you made with the flag and with Ketu is also exceptionally profound. And when you brought in the concept of the elephant, elephants, to me, one thing they always symbolize is understanding. But they also symbolize power too, because they can hear each other from a distance, and they're also very powerful animals that you definitely wouldn't want to get in their way. And it's equally very profound, the split of being an Asura, but also having the Mitra connection. And we're actually really fortunate that connection is there with Varuna, especially as Varuna is connected to the Nakshatras, because if Varuna was only connected to the darkness, then we'd just be lost in darkness. And I found this really wonderful book, and I've often commented on it. either with clients, or I think I may have in a couple of videos as well. It's called The Crown of Life. I think it's by a gentleman named Sant Kirpal Singh. It's one of those chance books that you find in a dollar bin, somewhere. And I read something in there that was a very profound expression of consciousness or how consciousness works. And it really ties in with our conversation today, which is when you were speaking about the eyes and how we each have two eyes. Well, we see things with our eyes because light is reflecting off of objects that are, in our pathway. If we didn't have any light, we'd just be stumbling around in the dark, right? And this book was explaining how the experience of consciousness is very similar, which is we experience consciousness because there are obstructions that we're encountering to our purity or to our capacity to connect to our purity. And that very much ties in with the whole concept of Varuna and the duality of Varuna, and how he's simultaneously, it's interesting because he's an Aditya, which that gives a connection to the sun on one level. And he's also connected to the moon because Krishna says that, amongst water creatures, he's Varuna. So there's this continuing duality with Varuna, but continue. I just wanted to comment on that whole descendant thing before I lost the thought pattern that was there for a moment.
Yeah, this is interesting, Michael, what you're saying as well. You talked about Varuna's connection with the sun because he's an Aditya, and his connection with the moon as well, because, he is the lord of the night sky. And very interestingly, if you even look, this is just an observation that I wanted to share with all your viewers as well, is to see, how his nakshatra, his abode, the abode of Varuna is Shatabishak or Shatabishaj. And what you see is 8 nakshatras prior to Shatabishak is Anuradha, which is the rulership of Anuradha is Mitra, his counterpart. And
that's the Maitra Tara position.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
The Maitra Tara. That's right. Absolutely. So 8, it is the Maitra Tara. And 8 nakshatras ahead, which is again a Maitra Tara, is Rohini.
Oh, wow.
Which is, Rohini, is the birth star of Krishna, Lord Shri Krishna.
Exactly, right.
From the Luna dynasty. He was Chandravamshi of the Luna dynasty. So you can see that, this is somewhere like a midpoint between the, the daylight deity, which is more like Mitra. And then you can see, it's very interesting to see this kind of thing, how he's placed. And one more interesting thing that I also wanted to add to this, Michael, is there are many stories and legends about Varuna, which we don't hear much about. And there's also references saying that the mystic Valmiki took birth from an anthill, and which came from the reproductory fluid of Varuna. Okay. There is also another reference to Bhrigu Rishi being born. We say, many people say Bhrigu Rishi was born as a Manasaputra, which means the mind-born son of Brahma. But they say Brahma was performing a great sacrifice on behalf of Varuna, and he was giving oblations to Varuna. And then he was born from the sacrificial fire. Obviously, he is the mind-born son, but there was some background to say Bhrigu also was born because of the oblations that Brahma was giving to Varuna. So these are the two, sages which are very referred to because, Bhrigu and Valmiki. And then there is another 2 great rishis who are born from Varuna and Maitra. This is more like a combination, that I think, you should be aware of this legend or mythology about when Maitra and Varuna, they looked at Urvashi, the celestial nymph, they were trying to control themselves because she's such a beautiful nymph. But, some vital fluids, fell on the ground, and through that, 2 other rishis were born, which was Vasishtha Rishi and Agastya Rishi. So we see a very strong correlation with Agastya and Varuna in many of the mythological stories, because Agastya also had the ability, just like Varuna, the lord of the oceans, he could drink up the ocean and keep it in his belly, the whole ocean. He could, drink up the ocean. And so that was one ability which came to Agastya, Rishi Agastya. And Vashishta, we all know about his abilities. Okay, so there is common references that you see with Maitra, Varuna, and Vashishta and Agastya. So some great saints being born from these people. And just to add to what we were discussing, which I found that it might be very interesting for some of the viewers, and maybe there might be some more research work, but let's keep the topic on Varuna. But I wanted to say about the empty circle of Satabhishek. I'm sure that you have, talked a lot about on this symbolism of the empty circle with on your channel. But what I also wanted to add to this is the concept that we follow in most of our temples and religious places that we go is the concept of pradakshina. Have you heard of what is pradakshina and parikrama?
No, please continue.
Yeah. Pradakshina means whenever you go to a temple, you circumambulate
right.
Around in a clockwise manner by keeping the deity on the right side.
Right.
You always go from the left and you come, and you complete that circle. So, pradakshina, as per Skanda Purana, means, the word pra also comes from saying that, dispelling your sins. And you're keeping the deity on the right because you're trying to take the positive energies of the deity.
Right.
Okay? And there is some symbolism with this. And I've seen many of the remedies. Sometimes what I give to people who have prominent planets in Satabhishak is to identify, what planet is sitting in Satabhishak. And based on the deity, then I would say, oh, you go and do 3 pradakshinas. There is a symbology behind that as well. And there is a science behind why you go and do a pradakshina. Pradakshina means parikrama, circumambulation.
Right.
So the syllable pra dispels sins. The syllable da means, which bestows your desires. Okay. Shi, destruction of your karmas. And na, which gives you the bestower of moksha or salvation. So, basically this whole concept has also got to do with, which deity, how many circles, or how many times you have to circumambulate. There is a fixed thing that you go to a temple with an exception. For example, you say when you go to a Ganesha temple, you go only 1 circle, or you can go 3 circles. There is a reason for that. And this has got something to do with Satabhishak as well, to completing that circle. There was a legend, Michael. I will briefly tell you about this legend.
Oh, definitely. Take your time.
There was a competition between the 2 sons, the elder son, who's Lord Ganesha, and the younger son of Parvati and Lord Shiva, or Mahadev, which is Kartikeya. So these 2 sons were in a competition. So Shiva says, I want to see who can go around the world and universe thrice, who's the quickest. And they will be given the honor of saying, they are the fastest or the quickest. It was like a competition. They were very young, Ganesha and Kartikeya. So both of them accept the challenge, and Kartikeya just, mounts on his peacock, and he's very quick. He just jumps and he just starts going, circumambulating the whole world or the universe, right? And just before he's completed and Ganesha is just sitting there. He's not doing anything. And his parents are like, your brother has just gone ahead. And he's just gone, around the universe. He's going, come on, hurry up. Ganesha, when he just sees, he's back from his 3rd round and he's just arriving. Before he arrives, he quickly goes around his parents thrice. He circumambulates his parents thrice. And he says, I am victorious. Because, but Kartikeya comes and says, no, this is not the pact. The pact was who can go around the universe thrice. He says, my parents are my universe. So it's only, how do you look at it subjectively? So for Ganesha, he was so intelligent and so quick-witted. He said, "This is my universe," and it just took me, to go around them, because Shiva and Parvati is my universe.
Right.
It's a beautiful way of trying to say about parikrama and pradakshinas. So, like Krishna, also there is a thing. Vishnu, there is, how many times you can go around. So each deity has something. For example, Ganesha is 1 or 3. Shiva doesn't have a full circle. This is something that many people do not know. It's called Pradosha. Okay? It's called Pradosh, or it's called Soma Sutra Pradakshina. Soma Sutra Pradakshina means you never complete the full circle. It's always like the crescent moon. You always go till the duct wherever, it's called the duct wherever the water from the drops from.
Right, the duct, yes.
The duct wherever it comes. You don't cross that. You just come back. So there is a ritual that you complete this. You don't complete the circle. In a Shiva temple during the Pradosh Pradakshina, it's called Soma Sutra. Why is it called Soma Sutra? Soma means the moon. So it's like the crescent moon. You finish the Pradakshina.
It's interesting when you said that. My mind immediately went to the concept of Ajja Ekapada, who is the one-footed goat form of Shiva. And so Shiva, really, if you're looking at that whole thing of you don't fully circumambulate, because you're dealing with the moon, and the moon is more of the manas aspect of ourselves. And Shiva, or the form of Shiva called Ajja Ekapada, is halfway between worlds. It's Shiva in potency, but also within the human essence as well, acts as a bridge between the realm of human and the realm of the divine. But please continue with what you were saying. I just wanted to share that.
No, this is very interesting. That's why, people have to know that it's called a Pradosh Pradakshina or Soma Sutra Pradakshina. You never complete it. It's like saying that you go around and then you come back and you come in the anti-clockwise direction. And that's like one Pradakshina.
Evolution, right, yes.
So, unlike all other deities, Shiva is got 3, you have to go around that way.
Right.
And Vishnu, they say, has 4 Pradakshinas. So if you're going to any Vishnu temple, always go and circumambulate it 4 times. Okay? And Durga, they say 6. A people tree or a banyan tree is 7. See, all of them have something to activate with Shatabhishak. It's again of the circle. So Navagraha is always 9 because there are 9 of them. Agni and Surya, which is the sun god, it's always 7. That's why he has the 7 horses, the 7 rays. Agni is again, So there is some correlation there. But let's come back to, Varuna. But I'm saying there is a very significant thing with going to temples and doing the circumambulation, again connected to Shatabhishak.
There's a science I have found myself, and obviously it would be wonderful if we could journey back in time, right?
Yeah, let's go back. Yes,
to be in that moment, like where the Vedas were written and all of this was put together, because there is such a profound science connected to all of this, and even connected to the nakshatras and the way the nakshatras are explained, the way the nakshatras are laid out. It's just absolutely profound. Really, it's the science of consciousness. And while we're on that subject, there was one specific thing that I wanted to share here, if you can indulge me for just a moment, because if we have the concept of Varuna being an aditya, and Varuna is connected to the sun through that particular connection, but Varuna is also connected to the moon, because Krishna says that amongst water creatures, he is Varuna, and Krishna is also the moon. So Varuna every night, right, visits a different nakshatra in the form of the moon. And Varuna every night stirs our consciousness or stirs our psyche. You can look at the moon, and the moon's gravitational pull on the earth is what causes the rise and fall of the tides. So through the oceans, again, Varuna, we have the perfect example of the modulations of the mind of our human consciousness. The tide rises and it falls, right? So there's a sutra the first sutra in the Yoga Sutras, which very profoundly ties into all of this. And the sutra is Yogash Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yogash Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga is the stopping of the modifications of the mind, or the controlling of the modifications of the mind. And so on a certain level, through the nakshatras, we're given our individual yogic path that we're meant to complete with each planet. And as you were saying, you know, like with the circumambulations and things along those lines, each individual has a specific yogic destiny. And it's exhibited through your planets and the nakshatras the planets are in. If you work with house cusps, it's also like if you look at house cusps and nakshatras, you have lessons with those as well. And when our life feels out of harmony, well, quite often I think that when our life feels out of harmony, it's not out of harmony because it's perfect harmony. Because dissonance is also a form of harmony. And it's that dissonance that allows us to, in the great celestial symphony, to come to resolving a dissonant note with a more harmonious note, right? So you have to have that dissonance so you can have a different form of harmony. So even that seeming dissonance is a form of harmony. So when there's a seeming disharmony in our life, it's because we're kind of disconnecting with the nakshatra that planet is in, or with the nakshatra that house is in. And we already have the tool there at our disposal, which is, you know, the nakshatra and what its energy is about in order to resolve it. I've been doing a lot of work lately in terms of remedies with the sutras from Taittiriya Brahmana, the Nakshatra Sutras. And I've been getting a lot of really positive feedback from people with that. Actually, with a few clients, to the extent who were very sensitive, to the extent that they felt they had to stop working with the sutra because there was just too much moving for them through working with it. It's absolutely profound, the science, or the sacred science that we have through astrology. We've been given tools to really understand what we're supposed to do in order to evolve and to grow. And I think that, you know, prediction is just a symptom of the malady. It's that disease of the mind that goes, I'm concerned, or I'm afraid, or I'm freaking out over this. And whilst as astrologers, I feel it's very important to connect to the predictive aspect of things, I feel we also have to go to the root or the source of what the issue is, because otherwise it's just treating the symptoms endlessly. Anyway, I went off on a tangent there. Please
no, I think that's beautiful. Michael, you're talking about those, you know, Taittiriya Brahmana and the sutras there, the Nakshatra Sutras. There was so much of information packed in those sutras. And you start unraveling those sutras, you know, through your practice, through discussions with people,
yes,
through your own understanding, and also through, you know, such discussions, we get to know so much. And I'm grateful, you know, for this opportunity to come and discuss, because every time when you talk, likewise, my mind also goes into.
And the same here, yes.
Yeah, because, you know, when we start exchanging notes or start exchanging, you know, things that we have read, that's when, you know, somebody else keeps talking, and then it just. So, you know, with Varuna, also, if you see why he's been given the abode of Shata Bishaj. Bishaj means, you know, 100 cures, as we say, or 100, you know. Bishaj is more to do with something that you apply on, like a herb. You know, you take many herbs and
Salve, or yeah,
make a paste out of it, and then you apply that. That's like Bishaj. You know, in the olden times, the doctors used to get those, you know, herbs.
Poultice
Yeah,
is what it's called here.
yeah, exactly. That's right. And interestingly, most of these doctors, what they say is, whenever moon, as you said, moon has connection with Varuna. When moon was transiting Shatabhishak Nakshatra, many grains were traditionally wrapped in herbs and stored so that they could get some medicinal properties. And those grains were then eaten later on. But they were kept for one full cycle of the moons, So moon goes through each of these nakshatras, and when they come back to Satabishak, then that's when the grain was ready to be unwrapped. So it is like this whole thing is like a circle. You're putting them everything wrapping them around. So that's the whole thing. The whole thing with Varuna is also to wrap around something. So I see that there's some connection again with the healing and with making anything more potent. So what I've seen is, and this was another thing which when I was discussing with another great astrologer from Iran, Ehsan Kazini.
I know, I've heard of him, yes.
Yeah. So Ehsan was telling me, he was seeing one of his clients who has a very prominent Shatabishak. She used to make these notes. She used to make these small chits, and she used to write a wish on it, and in a different color. And she used to write a wish, and then roll them up and tie it with a small thread and put it in a box. And she used to accumulate those sort of things. And it was more of a Varuna or a Shatabishak trait. Is to write something as a wish, and then to roll it around, and then tie it with a small thread and put it in a box. It's your wish box. How many of us will be doing that? I found that it's a fantastic thing. I tell some of them, why don't you do that? Whenever moon is transiting any nakshatra, you make a small thing, especially Shatabishak. If there is a wish that you want to heal somebody, cure somebody, you want to do something, you want to achieve something, do this small chit, and you can have different colors. You can have it in pink, purple, red, yellow, whatever. So you are also activating with the planet, whatever is there. So you can, for example, if it is a Jupiter, which is in Satabishak, then use a yellow sort of a paper and then roll it. Make it like a small roll, and then tie it and write your wish, and then put it in a box. And he was saying that it was like a great thing that he was seeing that this lady was doing. So sometimes whenever you see such things, you come up with some great way of learning these nakshatras as well.
Right. And ultimately, that's I'm going to say something, but I mean something deeper, which is that ultimately that's the supreme goal, right? So we can say on one level that learning the nakshatras is an individual pursuit and an individual fascination, but on another level, it's a supreme goal, because we're given through the nakshatras a very profound journey. And it's interesting too, because throughout texts and what are written about the nakshatras, there are different starting points with the nakshatras. You have some systems that start with Mula. You have some systems that start with Kritika, right? You're explaining the whole concept of Shatabishak, the connection between Shatabishak and Anuradha and Rohini. And so there's some very profound energy there.
Definitely. I think, there is so many ways of looking at nakshatras as well. As you were mentioning, you can start with Mula, you can start with Kritika, I think it's just based on what were your observation skills are. I think every system I can put my hands down and say every system works. It's just that how much faith and connection you have with these, higher deities, because they definitely will give you some clues and they will make you understand. It's not that one system is better than the other, because all systems are, because it's universal laws.
Exactly.
Laws. Exactly. So laws have to work with whatever you put your faith in. And I've seen that, we put our faith in anything. You can take a simplest technique and you can say, this works for me. And the more faith you have, the technique will keep working. It doesn't matter the simplest technique, simplest technique will start working. But when it stops working for you is when it becomes arrogance and ego.
Exactly.
Right? Thinking that now I predicted this with this technique on 10 charts. Then you will get 5 charts where this doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. That's the moment that your own dogma runs over your own karma.
Exactly. So
rather than your karma running over your dogma.
I don't think you're smarter than these planets and these stars. And what I believe is ultimately, even as an astrologer, what I feel is we have our highs and our lows as well.
Yes.
We can absolutely wrong on many occasions.
Exactly. Yes.
Half correct. And sometimes you can have a brilliant reading, and everybody was like, oh, where did this come from? This was absolutely brilliant. So you have this, but I think above all of this is God, because He knows you can never become.
Exactly.
So God is, you have to have faith in that process that you're talking about. And as long as you're connected with nakshatras, like you have been studying nakshatras for, I don't know, for how long, for 20 years maybe, that's been your love. And you see the connection. So when I talk to you, I get a spark. I know that this person has connected with them at a different level. And that's how I bring in that a different touch, because there is a personal connection with the deities. And these are both.
I think that's the way it has to be with nakshatras. Somebody, I think Ernst Wilhelm, a colleague of both of ours, put it really well. He was talking about with nakshatras, it's like the concept of, going into the Amazon and finding someone who's had no experience of electricity, right? And you bring them out of the Amazon and into your home, and they're getting ready to put their finger in a light socket. How are you going to warn them? Because they've never experienced electricity. You can't give them an experience of electricity. So what I'm always big on teaching my students when they're learning the nakshatras is you can't just connect to all these different nakshatra facets and intellectually try to digest it. You have to experience the movement of the moon through the nakshatras or planets through the nakshatras, so you have an experience. That's why mythology is one of the most profound ways of understanding the nakshatras, because it speaks to the archetypal aspect of our psyche that is not going to connect to things intellectually, but is much more going to connect with them from the subjective realm. And with nakshatras, it's very important to connect to them from that realm, or you will just quite literally never really get it, which really confirms the whole, in terms of what we've been discussing about Varuna, the whole experience of Varuna, because Varuna sets sets cosmic law, but he also gives us the modality through which to arrive at the truth through cosmic law. Initially, it's confusing to us, right? The cosmic law that he hands down to us because he clouds it in the night, right? But he gives us the potential, which is one of the things connected to Anuradha Nakshatra, to unravel that truth one step at a time and to arrive at our own conclusion, which, when you arrive at that conclusion, are there really words for it?
That's right.
Yeah. It's interesting because immediately I was thinking there's a sutra in Jaimini Sutras where he's talking about Jupiter in a specific position from the Swamsha relates to someone who is all-knowing and understands. But then in the next sutra he says, but they don't speak very much.
It's very, and sometimes, these sutras are very cryptic,
Yes.
Rig Veda, the word, there's a sutra which also talks about the birth of Aditi. And in the very next sentence, he says something like, Brahma is the father of Aditi. And then the very next sentence, he says, Brahma was born from Aditi. It's like a fractal. It's like what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Exactly.
He's trying to bring the fractal in place.
Yes.
So, which is very interesting. Who came? And once he says Brahma is born from Aditi, and from Aditi was born Brahma, or something like that. To some that, if I recollect very vaguely,
yes.
Not vaguely, but it's something about how she's also the mother and she's also the daughter.
Exactly. Yeah, so, and if you study five element theory, there's another profound representation of that too. Through the five tattvas and how that becomes more and more dense and and more materialized or gross, so to speak, and it ties into that whole concept.
Yeah, very true. And one more thing, Michael, I wanted to add, because when you talk about Varuna, nobody talks about the blessings that he brings in. Although his worship was discontinued, during the Vedic era, maybe, you know, Indra became more powerful than him, and Indra took the center stage. And after that, you know, after Indra, then all the other. But Varuna, not many understand that even Shatabhishek, there is a connection with Krishna. Okay? The tree which is associated with Shatabhishek is called Kadamba. Okay, and Kadamba is got a very nice flower which gives you perfumed flower, and it's believed that, you know, Radha and Krishna used to have their Ras Leela, you know, in places where there were Kadamba trees, and they used to, you know, be in divinity and, you know, union in romanticism. It's not the romanticism that we talk about now. It's more of it's Ras Leela. Ras means this flavor. It's the different flavors that you have of being in divine union. So it's very clearly said to be under the Kadamba tree, you know. So there is some connection also with Shatabhishek to increase the affection between two couples. And surprisingly, when you see the right opposite, this is what I've been telling mostly in my lectures now. I've been studying the opposite nakshatra. The opposite nakshatra is Puru Falguni.
Mm-hmm.
That's again the divine union, you know. And then we said the Maitra nakshatra is Rohini, and on one side is Anuradha, isn't it?
Right.
So it's a very, very strong connection that we see with Anuradha and Rohini, which is Krishna, and, you know, Anu wins, you know, forthcoming Radha, you know. So this is something that is there with this nakshatra, which I feel there is something about bringing together. That's the duality.
Exactly. Right.
You know, as the earth and the sky, and the point where the earth and the sky. Why do people want to go to a beach to see the setting sun? You know, because it invokes more of Venus qualities.
Mm-hmm.
A rising sun will invoke more of Mercurial qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Venus is very strong in the setting sun. So that's why you want to go to the beach to see the setting sun. It's because where the sky meets the ocean, you know. So there's something that, you know, Varuna brings in, which I don't think many people understand. So many newlywed people, they also believe in reciting the mantra that I was saying, the Gayatri of Varuna, to bring in more divinity into their lives, and to bring and remove danger of water as well. Varuna Gayatri is also recited here in India. You will see when the rain falls in India, the monsoons don't come on time. Then you see there is also this, you know, you can see many priests standing in water bowls, big ones. They fill their water till here, and then they chant the verses for, you know, bringing the rainfall. And it's surprising, you see that, you know, to bring the rainfall, they're reciting Varuna.
It's interesting because while you're saying that, and I'm almost out of time, sadly enough, but I wanted to share something with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is, or rather, share something with the viewers. I'm sure you probably know this. Water is, and I often give this teaching to my students. Water is the power of cohesion, and we don't think of water as having a shape, but if you look, it has a shape. If you can see, the drop is, you know, it coheses together. So there's union through water. Simultaneously, there's also water's power of dissolving.
That's true.
And so that brings it back to the whole Varuna concept of, you know, I can bring union to something, and I can also dissolve something. And ultimately, you know, through Varuna and through the connections with the nakshatras, we're looking to dissolve our ignorance. And we're looking to unify with the, you know, attain union with the divine aspect of ourselves. But we have to cohese, and interestingly enough, water gives rise to the earth element. We have to cohese and come here into a physical form in order to dissolve that earth element. And it's said that when sages attain Mahasamadhi, they work backwards through the 5 elements. They go from earth, you know, to water, to fire, to air, and then to ether, and then finally into samadhi. So there's just this whole really profound system with that. And we're given, I think, a gift through the nakshatras with which to do that ourselves.
Yep, that's right. Absolutely right.
Well, Dr. Pai, I'd love to have you on again soon and finish this discussion. I feel bad that we're getting cut short a little bit, but
Yeah,
I could talk literally for 2 hours or 3 hours or 5 hours, right?
yeah. But thank you very much, Michael. This was a very interesting discussion, and I love coming on your channel and speaking about nakshatras because I learn so much from interacting with you. So it's
Oh, the
always
same here. Yes,
yeah. So
most
thank
definitely.
you to
Oh,
all.
and thank you for coming on. Do you want to share with our viewers your website where they can find you and connect with you and book with you? Are you accepting consultations at present, or?
At the moment, no, I'm not taking too many consultations, just taking it easy. So I just want to take some time off to focus on my research because
Excellent.
I've been doing a lot of research. So I want to study more on these deities and understand more about their stories and their legends, and and try to see like what you've been talking about Varuna, and you've been reading in depth on Rig Veda, Varuna, and those things. So that's why I'm now taking time off to focus more on research.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see things that you come out with in association with what you find.
Yeah.
Because we all learn from each other, and I think
Yes.
if we keep our minds open, that's how we,
That's right.
how we can get wiser with it all.
Absolutely.
Well, do you want to refer people to your site, or is there anything you want to share with people before parting? Or?
The only thing what I wanted to share with everybody is just one thing that I always believe is this knowledge of nakshatra doesn't belong to us. We belong to this.
Exactly. Yes.
So just don't think that we think, oh, this guy has a lot of information. Sometimes information can be construed as knowledge. This is just because we're giving information, that doesn't mean you're knowledgeable. So, and this knowledge doesn't belong to us; it belongs to everybody.
Exactly.
And we belong to this knowledge, and knowledge doesn't belong to us.
My friend, you said something very profound there, because actually as I was telling you, I've been giving people certain sutras in Taittiriya Brahmana to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And I give them the meaning that I get from it at first, but then I say, don't limit yourself to my meaning, because it's meant to unravel itself to you over time and give you very specific meaning. So I'm glad that you shared that, because it doesn't belong to us.
Exactly. So I want to say, whatever you feel with the nakshatras is more of observational,
Yes.
And whatever you feel and whatever you receive from the cosmos is right. It doesn't mean that there is only some boundaries there when you're learning about these deities and these nakshatras. So the more open you are, I think the more information will start flowing to you.
I was just going to say, you said something very interesting there too, because whenever I teach nakshatras to people, I'm always pointing out all the different facets, because when you're studying nakshatras, you start seeing some facets that seem contradictory.
Yeah.
And so I explain to students, this is the complexity of the nakshatra. Different factors will bring out different facets of that. True. So it's not limited, and each person's going to have a different understanding, because we're all engaging with the nakshatras from a different perspective.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So I think just take nakshatras as you keep telling Michael. Just study them as you go along, and there's nothing like this is only thing which is the remit of the nakshatras. We don't know. We only probably know we have just scratched the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. Most
we
definitely.
have scratched the tip of the iceberg. We don't even know what is below there. So
definitely. Well, thank you for coming on today, my friend. Yes.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Blessings. Namaste. Bye now, my friend.
Yeah. Bye-bye.